Our invoice section is divided into two major panels. We have the panel where you can see a list of invoice that has been issued to resident and the details to that invoice. For example, here you have an invoice that is issued to a resident, which is a modern toilet reinstallation and the amount. And if you have the right privilege, you can also update this. And let me tell you a little bit about our update system. Here you have ongoing, which means that the invoice is currently still ongoing, which means residents are expected to make payment to this invoice. You have completed, which is self-explanatory, means the invoice has been completed and no payment is allowed at the moment it has been updated to completed. You also have terminated, which means the invoice has been terminated and no longer valid. And for example, if you want to request a payment, you can click on the request payment, and this gives you an option to enter the title of the payment or the invoice, and you can enter the amount in the description for what the invoice is for. And here's another interesting thing: you can send this invoice to every single resident, or you can just select an invoice, select a resident that you want to send the invoice to, and you just send the invoice to the resident alone, and they can receive it via the email, and they will be able to attend to the invoice. Here's an example of how an invoice that has been attended by a resident. And here, for example, here we have this borehole repair, and the price is 10,000 naira. And you can see the description for this invoice. And here shows you a list of residents that has made payment to this invoice and the date when they made the payment. And you can see something very interesting, the transaction slip. This gives you the photograph of the transaction slip, so that way you can be sure that payment has really been made by this resident. And you can, if you have the privilege, you can update the status of the transaction. So we have unpaid, paid, and refund. Depending on the situation, you can update, and that is going to be in the record. And also you can export this file as a PDF or an Excel file, and that way you can continue with the data for other purpose. And like I said earlier, if you have the privilege, you can update the status or whatever details you want to update about an invoice. And that's just how the invoice area works.